Welcome to episode 72 of the How to Japanese podcast. I'm Daniel Morales from howtojapanese.com, and it's January 2026. Otsukaresama deshita. We made it. Or did we? The world has kind of stopped making sense over the past month, but I think I'll leave most of that out of the podcast. I put enough political material into the timeline on Blue Sky, which is my main social media platform these days, mostly in the form of retweets and things like that. So I don't think I need to add anything else here. I'm not really well versed enough in the issues to really make a difference. There's a lot of content out there for you to be consuming in podcast form, but not mentioning it in some form feels like malpractice. So I'll just say, what the hell? It's really too much, it feels like. I hope you all are safe and doing well. My life here in Japan feels like the polar opposite of what is going on back home. And what's going on back home really is taking up a lot of my attention, I would say, despite everything that I've got going on here. My 2025 ended basically as smoothly as I could have hoped. I haven't decided how many details of the pregnancy or child raising I'll share in my writing and on the podcast, but I feel like it will be somewhat minimal. If you hear anything different in the recording, that's because I'm recording in a different room with my daughter sitting right next to me in the few hours I have while she's asleep after just feeding her. So other than that, nothing really will change. I'll probably mention things here and there. I'm sure that there will be interesting language notes that I come across, but I'll probably keep it to a minimum. I do have one child raising recommendation this month that feels essential, so stay tuned to the end of the episode to hear that. It's a little Osaka specific, but I wouldn't be surprised if other municipalities have similar programs, and some very light Google searching seems to confirm that. This month in the newsletter, I wrote about an idea that I'm calling replacement pronouns. These are Japanese words that can stand in as pronouns, but are not pronouns in the same sense that we think of them as English speakers. For example, I, you, we, he, she. These very specific words that we would think of in Japanese as, watashi, anata, kimi, watashi tachi, kare, kanojo. The words I wrote about are also an impossible pair, which is an idea that I've talked about before. These words are onsha and heisha. Onsha and heisha. I remember learning these as far back as 2003 or 2004, but it took me 20 plus years to really solidify my understanding of them and add them to my active vocabulary. And I think I have my move back to Japan and getting a job at a Japanese company to thank for this, because that single change put the words in front of me more regularly, increased the exposure and the frequency in which I encountered them, and that's all it took for this particular pair to settle. Essentially, I heard people using these words at work and started to understand them. But I don't think that's required for all impossible pairs. Yes, time and exposure really are key for most aspects of the language, for learning anything really. But I do think the proper attention and energy independent of exposure can solve the impossible pair problem, which is why I first started introducing them in my newsletter. For new listeners, impossible pairs are words that are similar in some respect, either pronunciation being one of the main ones, but also, I would say, conceptually similar. I initially introduced them in September 2024 with the two words tashika and tashikani, and then also yokka and yoka. Yokka and yoka being the 4th and 8th of the month, tashika and tashikani being ways to say I am not certain, and then I am also certain about something. These are two good examples of cases where I did not rely on time and exposure alone. I made a determination that I would no longer accept my ignorance. I found a few phrases and mnemonics that helped me kind of solve the difference between these two words, and now I'm really happy to be using them correctly. The other sets that I've introduced are jotai and joukyo in January 2025. That's kind of two words that are used loosely for state or the state of something in kind of two different conceptual ways, but they also sound very similar. And then the other one is kisu and gusu in July 2025. These are the words for even and odd, and even now I still have to rely on my mnemonic to know that the ki in kisu is kimyo, the ki in kimyo, which is strange. Strange is odd, so kisu is odd. That's still how I do it, but I think eventually, hopefully that term will settle into a more natural, just kisu equals odd number in my mind. So go back and check out those episodes for more information on those particular pairs. I thought that another pair would be a nice, easy way for me to start the new year, and onsha and heisha have been on my list and really only solidified for me within the last year. As I mentioned, I learned them over 20 years ago, so it took me a little while, but I finally got them. These are two words that are used to refer to companies. Onsha is used by the speaker to refer to a conversation partner's company. So if you are, for example, if your company is working with an outside company, to refer to that outside company, you would say onsha, which literally means something like honorable company. But if you ever translated it as honorable company, you would probably get laughed at, I think, and maybe rightfully so. But in the defense of honorable company, the on in front of the word is the same o or go prefix that gets tacked onto other polite words like okarada or oisogashi or gokyōryoku. These are all the honorable prefix, but are usually written in hiragana. In onsha's case, the on is always written with the kanji. This use of the honorable prefix also gives it an easy mnemonic to differentiate from heisha. You just need to remember that on is similar to o, which is polite and respectful, and then refers to the other person's company, the external company from your own. Heisha then is the word that you use to humbly refer to your own company. The kanji hei itself literally means yokunai, or yabureru, boro ni naru. So essentially it's just a kind of self-deprecating way to refer to your own company. The critical piece that I was missing was exactly how these get used. Like, in what circumstances would I ever use these words, and how would I use them? For anyone just learning these two words, I'd recommend thinking of them as pronouns. I do think that's a helpful way to access them. Heisha is just I or we, and you use it to refer to your own company. And onsha is just you or you all, and you use it to refer to someone from another company that you're working with. I gave one example in the newsletter, and that is, onsha ni kakunin o shite itadaite kara, heisha no hou de shōri o susumemasu. Onsha ni kakunin o shite itadaite kara, heisha no hou de shōri o susumemasu. Clearly, the Japanese here is referring to two different companies, but the person saying this is addressing a specific individual from that company, and they themselves are a specific person from a company. So when translating this into English, I think the most natural way to render it would be to say something like, after we receive your confirmation, we will proceed with the processing. This is rather than after my humble company receives your honorable company's confirmation, my humble company will receive with the will proceed with the processing. You would never translate it like that. And even if you got rid of honorable and humble and just use company, that would still be awkward in English. In English, translating them as pronouns makes the most sense. There's clearly a little more involved here than we or your. There's an institutional level of responsibility or implication involved when you use onsha and heisha. It's more than just an individual. Yet at the same time, there are individuals responsible for whatever confirmation and processing is involved here. So I think the pronouns are a nice way to think of these two words. I wondered whether there are any other words that can function in a similar way, but the only ones that I could think of I discovered because of the dictionary definition of heisha, which displayed other alternatives like heioku, which is our humble house, heishi, our humble magazine / newspaper, or heiten, our humble store. It looks like you can also combine on with at least two of these, on-shi and on-ten, although they may not be quite as official as hei-shi and hei-ten. I'm sure there must be other similar kind of like replacement pronouns. Do any come to mind for you? Is there any words that can be used in place of pronouns? I couldn't come up with any. I had to ask my wife if she could think of any others. And after kind of explaining this idea to her, she thought that maybe to would work. This is the character from Tojitsu, which I wrote about back in November last year, 2025. You can attach to to different kanji to refer to yourself, or literally kind of this something or other, this corresponding thing. Just as if we have heisha, you can also use tosha, which would be our or this company. And you could have to grupu, our or this group, to ko, our or this school. To ko also could be our / this bank. Other than this, the only words that really qualified that she could think of were shoshoku, which means this government staff member, I, me, which is a word that government staff members could use to refer to their own role. But this isn't really what I had in mind when thinking of replacement pronouns. I was thinking of something more kind of generally applicable rather than that niche. So I keep wondering if there's some kind of sports words that would work here, but I'm not sure. Let me know if you have any ideas. That's all I have for the newsletter this month. Check out the blog. I think you might have if you access the podcast through the blog, but I wrote about the additional replacement pronouns there rather than in the newsletter. And again, let me know if you think of any. You can contact me at howtojapanese@gmail.com or leave a comment, please, anywhere, blog post on the newsletter. That would be great. The other Iro links that I included in the newsletter are a link to the JLPP. They posted their annual translation competition. Please note that the submission window is in May this year, which is a month earlier than usual. Also, I think I'm going to try and include a link to the blog Cat Forehead and Rabbit Hutches, which is about housing in Japan. They had a really interesting article on called Twice Bitten on mortgages. And it's been the 31st anniversary of the Hanshin Awaji earthquake that destroyed around 250,000 homes in and around Kobe. And the article is about people who have had to pay two mortgages. They've had to continue paying the mortgage of the home that was destroyed, in addition to the new home that they build, which definitely gave me food for thought in terms of renting versus buying in Japan. So I'll try and link that if I can remember it. Otherwise, I'll link it in next month's newsletter. And then the only thing else I wrote about was I usually do my wrap up in terms of statistics for the year. In terms of my goal is always to spend more time writing and working on podcasts and newsletter than I do playing games. I was not successful this year, so I did not look too closely at my gaming statistics overall. The main reason I was not successful was because that I early in the morning on January 1st, 2025, I bought Slay the Spire on my phone out of, I don't know why, I just had a desire to play that game suddenly. It was also on sale, and I ended up playing 210 hours of it over the year. In my defense, most of that was on the train and while waiting for appointments and things like that when I couldn't have been writing. But I am proud to say that I finished Ascension 20 with the defect character, and I am eagerly awaiting Slay the Spire 2. I had to delete it from my phone for a little while to just kind of avoid it. But I'm also starting to here and there play through the silent. I think I'm on Ascension like 6 or 7, but that game is excellent. I really recommend that if you're looking for a deck builder or something like that. My recommendation this month is a little hyper-specific for anyone who is having a kid in Osaka or maybe Japan. I'm not too sure. I didn't Google too much to find out, but Osaka has a system called Sango Care for new parents. So I guess postnatal care or something like that, which makes it sound like something that you'd get in a hospital, but is really provided by the city. And we took advantage of one of the three options, which is called outreach support, to have a midwife / lactation consultant coach us on feeding the baby. And she came to our house. She's actually come, I think, twice now, and you can have them visit a number of times. It was more valuable than anything that the hospital taught us, even for something as simple as how to hold a baby. There are also 2 other services called a short stay and daycare service. The daycare service, the mother can go and get help for the day, including 2 meals. In the short stay, the mother can stay overnight with the baby and get 5 meals all combined between the 2 days. And the prices are extremely reasonable. For the outreach service, it's just 500 yen for 5 visits, and the city covers the rest. The day service is 1,500 yen, and the short stay service is 4,200, 500 yen, both for up to 7 days each. I think the burden is on the mother / family to actually track down the midwife and the service providing the care, but getting that extra support can sometimes be invaluable. To give you an example, in my ward, which is Jotoku, there are, I think, 2 midwives that seem to be providing the service, and they were listed on the Osaka website. And as I mentioned, they do house calls, and so they've come and coached us on breastfeeding, coached us on how to do bottle feeding, how to do tummy time, things like that. I did a quick search for Tokyo, and it looks like at least Kitaku offers something similar. So if you're in need, I definitely keep an eye out for that and what's available. It's also worth dropping by your kuyakusho to see what they have in terms of support, like classes, prenatal classes like the one that we took, or postnatal groups for mothers and their kids. Definitely keep an eye out for that. There is really a lot on offer, I think, in Japan right now for new parents. That's it. I think that's all I have for the podcast. As you can tell, this one was a bit rushed. I already have a newsletter drafted for February that I'm pretty excited about. I think it's an interesting topic. It's another pretty short one, looking at just one little phrase, but I have something for March already lined up that's nice and meaty, and is going to take me a little while to work on, that I've been working on for several months already. It involves looking at a lot of terms and Google, number of Google hits and things like that. And another term that I think will be really useful for anyone working in a business environment. So please do stay tuned for that. Probably in March. If I find something sooner than that, I may shift around the schedule a little bit. That's generally how I work. I have a number of different things going on at any given time, generally to kind of keep it easier on myself so that I'm not rushing around at the end of the month to get something posted. And this month, I've had the newsletter drafted and ready to go for several weeks. Just needed to find a few open minutes to record the podcast and then put it online and get all the links going. But I don't know if you could hear my daughter in the background, but she seems to still be sleeping relatively peacefully. So hopefully that didn't disturb the podcast too much. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Again, reach out at howtojapanese@gmail.com. Leave a question or comment anywhere. And then again, I'll put in a plug here at the end for my US JETA Japanese reading group. That's once a month. If you search for US JETA Japanese reading group, you should be able to find that. Also, through US JETA, I'm running a quarterly Japanese coaching sessions to help anyone who's like stuck in their Japanese studies. So if you fit that, please feel free to join us. And we also have a Discord group now that's slowly starting to grow, and join us there. And you can ask questions and chat with people who are also studying Japanese. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you in February.